Prime Minister Allen Chastanet has defended the move to extend the COVID-19 related state of emergency by 5 months. The news has caused uproar in some circles, especially with an election imminent. During a media scrum on the steps of Parliament on Tuesday, ahead of debates on the motion in the House of Assembly, he argued the SOE would facilitate the implementation of curfew times.
As we've indicated very frequently, the state of emergency is required to be the legislative tool to allow us to implement a curfew system. All of the other protocols that we're implementing are under the COVID Act. So let me repeat myself again, that the SOE, the state of emergency, is only being used to regulate the curfew times. And so without the state of emergency, we would not be in a position to implement the curfew times. And as you've seen, the curfew times along with the economic activity are the two things that we use to try to keep the COVID under control. And so far we've been doing a relatively good job. And I think that most people would agree that the 9 o'clock curfew has been working out relatively well. It's not ideal for some of the restaurants and bars, but in terms of keeping the cases under control and still allowing the economy to turn over and for people to at least keep their businesses open, it has been ideal in that case.
The Prime Minister told the press that the curfew is decided by the Office of the Chief Medical Officer, who advises the command center.
As I said to you, the state of emergency only applies to the curfew. The curfew is determined by the CMO office, who gives advice to the command center, and the command center passes that information on to cabinet. If in fact the protocols are going to be changed, the recommendation is made for them to be changed, it's then brought to NEMAC, which is the wider body, and there is a thorough discussion about the proposed protocols, and then they're implemented. So right now their recommendation is we do not change any of the protocols. The state of emergency that we had expires on May 16th, so we would have to extend it.
The current state of emergency elapses on May 16th, but this latest extension will take it to mid-October, beyond the constitutionally due election date. But Chastanet claims the declaration and implementation of the order can be undone by a statutory instrument.
The good thing is the state of emergency, it's much easier to cancel it than it is to implement it. So it takes Parliament to give the authority of the state of emergency, but the government, once it decides that we don't need a state of emergency anymore, meaning that we don't need to have curfews in place anymore, then we simply have to issue an SI and it would be suspended.
The Prime Minister contends that the legislative tools and protocol adjustments have been instrumental in tamping down cases and aiding the economic recovery. However, the struggle is by no means over, particularly in the case count.
Well, clearly, I think that the changes in the protocols has played a significant part in reducing the number of cases. I would be much happier if we had none. We still have, I think, as of today, around 85 active cases. Last week, I think we saw somewhere between 45 and 47 cases for the week. So ideally, I'd like to see zero. But certainly, coming from where we had over 1,200 cases and the hospital was, full, having a situation now where we have a minimum number of people in the hospital, this is a much better situation than we've had before. But we're still going to continue to pursue the full eradication. So I think the combination of continuing the protocols as well as getting more vaccines into St. Lucia really are the two critical things that we have to do as a government to solve this problem.
The Prime Minister backs the continued imposition of the 9 p.m. curfew. He claims strikes the right balance between keeping businesses going while providing a measure of public health mitigation. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.